Let's talk now about converting back and forth between rational and radical forms. Rational is something we've talked about already, and that refers to fractions. Radicals are square roots or cube roots. It's that radical symbol. All right, so we're going to be going back and forth between these two formats. So generally speaking, we can have something that looks like this. Let's say we have x and then to the a over b. All right, so that is in rational form. You see the exponent is written as a fraction. So I'll go ahead and write that underneath here. This is in exponent or exponential fraction form. We can take this where a and b are represented by numbers. All right, a and b there. A and b can be numbers. And we can rewrite this into what is called radical form, where we have this radical symbol here. The x, or the base, stays inside. The number b actually moves to the front, not as a coefficient, but as a small number right there in the space of that radical. And a is left here at the end. Okay, so a stays where it is, b moves to the front. So we can rewrite these. Now this will make a little bit more sense once we put some actual numbers onto it, but that right there is how we go back and forth. And I'll go ahead and fill this in down here. The one on the left is exponent fraction form. This one over here is in radical form. All right. So first example. The instructions are going to tell us rewrite into radical form. So they want us to rewrite whatever they give us into radical form. So that means they're probably going to give us something in exponent fraction form. So what they give us here is 16 to the 4/3 power. All right. That is in exponent form, because this right here is the exponent and it's rational, it's a fraction. So we can rewrite this into radical form. So let's write the radical symbol. The part that stays inside is the base, the 16. And now we got choices. The 4, the top number, is the a, that stays where it is here, and then the 3 travels to the front. And there you go, you've rewritten it. And for right now, that's all we have to do, just rewrite the form. So we've gone from exponent to radical form. Let's say we had 8 to the 1/2. We want to rewrite that into radical form again. So we want the radical symbol. The base stays inside. That's going to be the 8. Now the 1 stays where it is, and 2, the b, the bottom number, moves to the front. Now we can actually clean this up a little bit more. Let's say this was a multiple choice test and they asked to have this in the fully simplified form. Now anything to the 1 power is just itself, so you really don't need to put the 1 there. All right? And I'm going to tell you that we actually don't need to put it when there's a 2 in the front. This is the same thing as well. Because if we think about square roots, and I'll do a little example over here. When you're taking the square root of something like 25, the square root of 25 is 5. And what you're doing is actually splitting it into 2 pieces. And that's what that 2 represents, how many pieces you're splitting it into. And that's why we never see the 2, because we already know automatically we're splitting it into 2. Like for example, if it said to split something like this, you're splitting it into 3 of the same pieces. So if you don't see a number in the front, it's a 2. If you don't see a number at the end, it's a 1. Let's try some more. All right, so just real quick, it really doesn't matter whether your base is a letter or a number. We can rewrite this into radical form. This time the base is a letter, Let's put that base number or letter inside. The number that stays where it is the 125, and the number that floats to the front is the bottom, the 45. All right. Now, let's see if we can go the other way. We've gone from exponential into radical. Let's go the other way. So, for example, rewrite into exponent form. So they're going to give us 8, 4, 3 in the front. All right, that is radical form. We see the radical symbol. So we want to rewrite this as an exponent. The number inside is the base, so 8. And we're going to rewrite the exponent as a fraction. The number that stays where it is and stays on top would be the 4. The number that moves to the bottom is a 3. And you've rewritten it. There's your answer. Let's say we're doing the same thing. We got the radical 16 with an 8. We want to rewrite that into exponent form. The base, the number inside is the 16. I want to rewrite the exponent as a fraction. Now we've got the number at the end, but we don't see a number in front. Remember, I told you if we don't see that number in the front, it's an invisible 2. So we can actually write that now. Number that stays on top is 8, bottom number is 2, and we actually can simplify this to a 16 to the power. 8 over 2 is 4. So really not a rational anymore, but still exponent form. And let's see one more of these. Actually, not one more. One more example of these. Let's say they give us square root of y. I want to rewrite this in exponent form. Unfortunately, there's no numbers at all, but we know if the number is missing in front, it's a 2. If the number is missing here, it's a 1. So y is still the base and the exponent now. 1 on top, 2 floats to the bottom, and there's our answer. So that's just rewriting. What if the instructions change and tell us to simplify the answer? So here's what they're going to give us. They're going to say 25 to the 1/2 power. I want to get one final answer from this. Okay, so in the end it should say equals some sort of number. Right now it's in exponent form. We can change that into radical form. That'll be maybe the first step. So let's put that radical symbol. 25 stays inside, 1 stays here, 2 floats to the front. All right. Now when we're doing this, you want to deal with the front number first because we're going to keep going, not just rewrite it. We want to keep going here. Now that 2, it's not a multiply by 2. That's telling me I need to split this 25 into 2 of the same piece. Okay, so the number that gets split into 2, or the square root of 25, is a 5. Okay, that's the split. But we still have this exponent 1 on it. But 5 to the 1 power just comes out to 5. So in the end, 25 to the 1/2 power is the same as 5. Let's see another one. Again, let's go ahead and simplify. 64 to the 3/2 power. Let's rewrite that into radical form. So put the radical symbol, a 64. 3 stays where it is, 2 comes to the front. Let's deal with the 2 first, front number first. That means split this into a 2-piece. So what times what gives me 64? That would be an 8. The square root of 64 is 8. We still have this outside number, the 3. 8 to the 3rd power technically is a good answer, but we can put that on the calculator. You can do 8 to the 3rd power, or it's 8 times 8 times 8. And that answer comes out to a 512. So 64 to the 3/2 power, 512. One last example. Again, let's simplify. 8 to the 5/3 power. Write it as a radical form. 8 stays inside, 5 goes where it is, and 3 moves to the front. Now the last two problems said split it into two pieces. This one says split it into 3. So what number multiplied by itself 3 times? What times what times what gives me 8? That number happens to be a 2. See, 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. So we're going to write that 2. We don't write all 3 of them, just the one of them, because we're splitting it into that piece. But we still have that 2 to the exponent of 5 here. So what that means is a 2 times a 2, 2, 2, 2, 5 times. So not 2 times 5, but 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, or 2 to the 5th power. And that answer comes out to a 32 when we use our calculator. So today we're looking at going from radical form, from exponent form, and vice versa, and then simplifying using these rules that we've just learned.